going to try this again. I do not know why it chose to behave the way it did. Give me a second, folks. I'm making sure that we are working properly now. All right. I think we got it fixed. I think if it does that again, we'll just have to call it for tonight and try it again another day. Because I'm not willing to fight that battle tonight. It's really not worth it. But I've been having a lot of internet issues lately, so it could be an issue of internet on my end. It could be a lot of things. But all right, we will try reading that again. So picking up, let's try reading it from the beginning, and we'll go from there. So where we left off, we were reading Helping Hands, Chapter 7, written September 5th, 2015. So let's do it. My very first college class. Well, to be more accurate, it was my first real class. All my life I've been homeschooled by my parents, so this would be my first time in a real classroom. I was excited and nervous all at the same time. My hands were trembling a little, and the weight of my backpack felt all that more strenuous as I made my way to Britton Hall. Britton Hall was 3 stories tall and very open. Connected to it was a bagel shop, and there were 3 conference rooms. All the classrooms had large window walls that overlooked the outside parking lots and the rest of campus. It looked like some kind of fancy corporation building instead of a college classroom hall, though, to be fair, I had nothing with which to compare it to. My classroom was on the 2nd floor in room 212. I checked my schedule one more time to see what my class was, and I was excited to see that I was in my communications class. I walked inside to see the interesting setup for the classroom. There were a total of 16 long tables set up in rows of 4 by 4 in the room. There were 2 rolling chairs to each table, and the wall in front of the classroom had 2 whiteboards side by side with a message written on one saying, "Welcome to COM 150" from Professor Wendy Weinhold. The wall at the back of the class was nothing but a large window that overlooked the parking lot, the road cutting through the campus called Chanticleer Street, and the pond outside of the HTC Athletic Center. To be frank, it was a gorgeous view. "Whoa, what's up with you?" I turned around at the sudden voice and saw a few of the students gawking at my arms, and I quickly flushed and hugged myself with them, waving with one. It's just how I was born," I explained. "How were you born with 4 arms?" the boy asked. I blushed again and gave him a short glare, not wanting to answer him. "It's called polymelia," I muttered. I ignored the whispering and wandering to a seat from the far back of the class so that people wouldn't instinctively stare at me. I simply watched people come in and tried my best to lean over the table so no one could easily see my arms. At long last, another woman came in who looked in her 40s. She erased the writing on the whiteboard and placed a binder on her podium. I quickly came to the conclusion this was Professor Weinhold. She smiled and addressed the class, which now seemed to consist of 18 or so students. "Welcome to COM 150, she said kindly. "My name is Professor Weinhold. How many of you are first-year students?" I raised my hand, along with 6 others. "Well, to those of you who just raised your hand, welcome to your first year at college. This is going to be a bit different from what you're used to. I'll confess this is only my 2nd year here at Coastal, and y'all will need to bear with me as I'm trying to make the transition." The kind way in which she spoke put me at ease. Some of the other students weren't paying her much attention, were just glancing at their phones or the clock, as if praying that the class would end soon. "To get us started," she continued, "I'd like you all to introduce yourself to the class. We're going to go around the room. When I get to you, you need to tell me your name, your major, and one interesting thing about yourself." I felt myself squirm a little. I knew what I wanted to say. My name was Jenna Corvus, my major was English literature, and one interesting thing about me was my love of poetry and literature. But I knew that wouldn't be the thing everyone found interesting about me. I bit my lip and inhaled through my nose, hoping the intake of air would cleanse me of nervousness. "My name is Robert."
"Jacob." "I'm Allison, but everyone calls me Allie."
"I'm Taylor." Sorry, what are we doing?" "I'm Daquan."
The names kept coming, and one by one students stood and spoke generic information about themselves. Some were rather interesting. One girl by the name of Andrea said she could speak 3 languages fluently. Others were clearly not interested, like a boy named Bobo, a name I'm sure his parents didn't give him, who had been texting and had no idea what was going on. That was when Professor Weinhold explained the no cell phone policy. Fortunately, mine was off. When she finally came to me, I froze up for a moment. I knew what I was supposed to do. My name, major, and interesting thing about me, right? I stood up, and for some reason, I couldn't seem to remember my own name. Who was I again? What was I doing? Stop being so nervous. My legs wouldn't stop shaking, and the eyes that fell on my arms weren't helping matters. The moment I stood, there was nothing to hide my arms anymore. My name is Jenna Corvus, I muttered. What was that? I couldn't hear you, Professor Weinhold encouraged. I said my name was Jenna Corvus, I said louder. And what's your major, Jenna? English literature, I said in the same loud voice. Now tell us something interesting about yourself, Professor Weinhold said. I felt my breath and voice catch in my throat. What was I to do? If I brought up anything other than my arms, then people weren't going to listen. But if I did bring up my arms, I would simply be certified myself as a weirdo. Well, What's something you like to do? She asked, clearly able to sense my discomfort. I felt myself starting to calm down a little. Was she trying to steer me away from the topic of my arms? I like to read and write, like poetry and stuff, I answered. Really? Do you want to be published? She asked. I hope so, I answered. She smiled and moved on to the next student, and I sat down, breathing a sigh of relief. I was definitely not cut out for public speaking. Some eyes were still locked on me. But at that moment, I didn't really care because I could breathe easily again. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let me pass out your syllabus and we'll go over the rules. I watched as she passed around papers with instructions and policies on them. When I got mine, I read it front to back before she was even done talking. It was all pretty standard stuff about homework, a quiz every other week, 4 tests, and a 5 tardy policy. The rules were strict, too. There were no excused absences at all, so it was vital for me to show up on time for every class. Now, since it's the first day, I'm going to be nice and let you go early. First, I want you all to take out a piece of paper and write down what you think communications is all about. I want you to tell me what your preconceived notions about the subject are. The class flew to their backpacks to begin the assignment, and I had paper out and ready. I thought for a while about what I thought communications was about, and finally wrote a simple 2-sentence answer. Communications, to me, is the idea of spreading information or ideals with others. It could also simply be how one goes about making information available. After I was done, I walked up to her to hand her my paper, and she smiled and took it. Jenna, yes, she asked. Yes? Do you mind if I speak with you a moment in the hallway? She asked. I nodded, and she walked me out into the hallway. Once the door was closed, she turned to look at me. Yes, ma'am? I asked, a little concerned. When you stood up today, it was very obvious you were scared about something. Is there a problem? Someone in the class who's been bothering you, or is there an issue I can help with? Whatever it is, please tell me. I blinked a few times, shocked by the question. Wasn't it obvious what had made me nervous? And no, ma'am, it's just I thought you or someone else would ask about my polymelia, I said. People have been kind of staring at me about this for a while. Oh, I assure you that won't be a problem in my classroom, Professor Weinhold laughed. Believe me, in a few weeks' time, it won't even be a big deal anymore. There's no need to be worried about them, Jenna. I smiled and nodded. I'm sorry. Well, there's no need to apologize. I was just worried there was an issue we needed to straighten out. I shook my head and smiled back, glad to have this problem figured out, and relieved my teacher was so understanding. With each new person I met at college, it seemed I kept meeting amazing people who didn't treat me like a freak for my arms. It was a strange pattern I was experiencing. I'd met someone like Logan, David, or Professor Weinhold, and I'd feel so wonderful and happy to be me, but then I'd leave, and for the next hour or so I'd have students walking by me staring at my arms, and some even gawking. It'd bring me down from that high I was experiencing at the hands of just a few simple words of encouragement. I left the class and hurried off towards my next one. I had about an hour until I needed to be there, but I thought it might be a good idea to swing by the library on my way to see what kind of books they had. Jenna! I stopped and spun around to see David walking by with a girl and a boy, both wearing similar teal polo shirts like him. They had on gold name tags on their chests and stitched writing saying University Housing on them. He smiled and walked towards me, and I grinned. Hi, I said. Hey, you done with your first class? He asked. Everything go well? It went well, I answered. He turned to the girl and the boy with him and called them over. Ricky, Kat, this is one of my residents, Jenna. She's the one I told you about, David explained. Nice to meet you, Ricky said, holding out his hand. I took it and shook, and Ricky winked playfully. So tell me, are you a hands-on kind of person? Oh, shove it, Ricky, Kat laughed. I'm sorry about him. He's a moron, but he's harmless. It was the strangest thing. The other day when I'd been made fun of about my arms, it felt so much anger and frustration. But Ricky's comment didn't make me angry. It made me want to laugh. It was all in how he said it. I couldn't quite place the difference, but in this instance, it was more private. It felt less cold, and his smile wasn't mocking, but playful. It's okay. It's funny. Hey, you hear that, Kat? I'm funny. She said I was funny. She just confirmed it. Well, statistically speaking, someone on this campus would find you funny, Ricky.
Hey, don't confuse me with your math speak. I don't take math majors, all right? Rick shoved her a little, and David shook his head. They're on staff with me. They're RAs, too. In fact, Kat lives in the building right next door to ours, and Ricky lives 3 buildings down. He also helps work with the HEC Athletic Center as a trainer. You should drop by and see him sometime.
Really? I asked. The truth was I had not given much thought at all on how to do athletic activities here, and I didn't know how athletic I would be, and my primary concern at the moment was just getting through my classes and getting good grades.
Oh yeah, it's a great way to get fit and meet people, and it's great stress relief. You want to make connections here? The best way is to get involved with that kind of stuff. Look at you giving advice, Ricky laughed, slapping David on the back. Our little boy's growing up, Kat.
I looked from Ricky to David with a questioning look, and David must have seen it because he blushed.
Yeah, this is actually my first semester as an RA, so I'm a little new at it. But don't worry, I'm perfectly capable, David explained.
I stopped myself from gasping in surprise. David looked and acted so disciplined and professional, it was hard to believe he wasn't in any position any longer than a few weeks.
Yeah, you and David have a lot in common, too. You're both trying new things, Ricky explained.
I suppose we are, I agreed. Ricky, stop being an idiot, Kat snapped.
Never!
Sorry about them, but
we do need to get going. We're actually on our way to a staff meeting. So where are you headed? David asked.
I'm going to the library, I answered.
If you keep going down the sidewalk and take a right, it'll be right in front of you, David explained. Have a good one, and see you tonight at the hall meeting.
I waved and hurried to find the library, positively beaming from getting to meet 2 more people who liked me for who I was and didn't think I was a freak. And it was such a relief to feel like I wasn't the only one outside of my element. Just how nervous and out of place had David felt when he started. Did he feel just as awkward as I did when he began as an RA? Did Kat and Ricky feel that way too? It was wonderful to know that I wasn't nearly as alone as I felt sometimes. I had a teacher, a roommate, and 3 RAs who actually liked me and wanted to help me. My thoughts were now far from the books that I would be looking at, but now on just how lucky I was to have met such amazing people. I couldn't wait to tell Sam all about them. As I walked, I heard the sound of a bird overhead, and as it sang merrily, I had in mind recalling a poem by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing without feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. Hope was perched on my soul.
And that was chapter 7. All right, let me get to chapter 8.
All right, here we go. Chapter 8, written August 24th, 2016. I was speechless. As I sat in the middle of the library, I felt my eyes wander all over the magnificent layout. The library was 2 stories tall and built to accommodate 4 different sections. To the far eastern side, on the first floor, was a cafe-like area complete with a Starbucks and a long line of printers for printing out projects. Above it, on the second floor, was a giant room full of large tables, conference rooms, and glass walls. It led to a large glass window that overlooked the entire front walk. Chairs and couches were pushed up against the walls for reclining and working in peace. There were 2 large pillars in the center of the room with computers surrounding them for work and recreation. Beyond them were booths and fancy cushions for sitting and working and reading. There were vending machines in a small room just off to the area, but it was the far westernmost portion of the library that was most interesting to me. On the first and second floor of the west wing was a near endless labyrinth of bookshelves filled to the brim with books of every kind. And along the walls were work desks for students to work in silence, but between every shelf was a plethora of knowledge, literature, history, and poetry. I felt almost like drooling as I ran my 2 right hands along the almanacs and encyclopedias. I actually felt tears build up, and I tried to remove my glasses quickly to rub the salty tears away. This put the library back home to shame. I had to lean against one of the shelves just to keep from falling over. As I thought about all these books in my mind drifting back to home and Mr. Johnson's library, I ran a hand down my left pocket and felt my keys, and my fingers gently rubbed against the key Mr. Johnson had given me to his library. I smiled to myself and wondered how he'd feel if he could see all these books, too. Would he be just as blown away as I was? I could imagine so. Where to even start? I whispered, wanting to keep my voice down. One of the things I loved most about libraries was the quiet and loneliness of them. Especially here, there were so few people to gawk at my arms that I actually felt like I could be alone with the books. I plucked off a poetry book in one hand, a thesaurus in another, a dictionary in the third, and finally I tossed my backpack onto a couch with my fourth hand. I fell back on the couch, using two of my arms to open up the poetry book and my other two hands to get to work searching my back for a notebook. I wanted to jot down any ideas I could. Indeed, more inspiration for my poetry. After I had all I needed, I leaned back on the couch and closed my eyes. One of my right hands dug into my pocket searching for my iPod. After finding it, I pulled it out and switched to a relaxing piano song. Music often helped in the writing process, I found, and after plugging in my headphones and losing myself to the sound, I glanced down at the paper and began to write. And would the stars of heaven not weep? No, that's not it. I spoke gently, erasing the line I'd written. I'd already gotten halfway through a new poem, and I found myself yawning. I checked my watch and squeaked in surprise. Already 2? I gasped. I need to hurry. I had one more class today at 2:15, and I had to hurry to get to class, otherwise I'd be late on my first day, and that'd be a horrible first impression. I threw the books I'd borrowed back onto the shelves unceremoniously, and I grabbed my backpack up quickly, dashing towards the stairs to get down. As I hurried, I could sense eyes following me, my arms working to get my pack on. I didn't have time to think about them, though. If my schedule was right, my class was on the other side of the campus, and I needed to run fast. As soon as I got out of the library door, I hit the ground running, darting quickly between strolling students and trying hard to keep it to the path. Crap, 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 I repeated, as if the word alone could boost my speed. I ran through the large grassy field known on the campus as the courtyard. It was the area that sat in the center of campus. Most club meetings went on in this large field, as well as recreation activities not involved in sports. There was a long, four-directional sidewalk that cut through the grass, each leading to four of the primary learning facilities: the Prince Building to the north, the Edwards Fine Arts Center to the east, the Smith Science Center to the west, and across the bridge over the Turtle Pond was the Wall Building to the south, which is where I needed to be. I crawled across the sidewalk to get to the bridge. Turtle Pond was just in front of me. I could make it. Hey, look out! Heads up! I turned around just in time to see a soccer ball flying in my direction at incredible speed. Luckily, it wouldn't hit me. Based on the trajectory, it would end up in the Turtle Pond. I watched it a second, and then instinct kicked in. I didn't slow down in my sprint, and I darted towards the bridge where the ball was headed, and I jumped up. All four of my arms shot upwards to catch it. I kept one set bent a little to stop the ball from below, while the other set would catch it directly. Airborne, I threw it out of my hands, and I felt the sharp pain of the rubber ball smashing into me. I winced, but didn't release my grip on it. All four of my hands tightening and gripping the rubber ball with all that their muster, and I landed just next to the bridge, having saved the ball from passing over it. I stopped and stared at the ball in my hands, breathing heavily from the sudden adrenaline rush I'd just had. I didn't even notice the two young men run towards me. "Wow! That was some catch!" one of them laughed. "How do you do that?" I used to play soccer with my dad," I answered. "No kidding," the other guy joked, taking the ball from my hands. "Hey, wait there a moment. I need to get someone." "I really don't have time. I'm going to be late for class," I exclaimed, trying to run again. "What time?" 2:15, I answered. "But it's only 2:03, the guy replied. "You have some time. Just wait a moment, okay?" After a few moments, I saw the other guy running back to me with another man, much older and wearing a teal and black collared shirt. He had a buzzed head and a thin face, but a concerned look was etched across it. "What's going on?" he asked. "Coach, this is the girl. She caught that ball right out of the air like it was nothing," the guy said excitedly. "Didn't you say you were looking for more recruits for the women's soccer team?" "Wait, what?" I cried. "Seems these two knuckleheads are hoping to get you onto the team. I'm Coach Hogan. Nice to meet you." He held out his hand to me, and I reached out with one of my right hands. As I did, he suddenly took notice of my three other arms, and his eyes widened in shock. I was getting used to that. "I'm Jenna Corvus," I replied. Trent and Allen here say that you caught that ball like a real keeper," he continued, still staring at my arms. I felt the urge to hide them behind my back. "I mean, I used to practice with my dad when I was younger." "Ever play soccer in high school?" he asked. "No, I was homeschooled." "Coach Hogan, she can still try out, right? Don't you need more? Trent, why don't you and Allen go back to practicing so you don't send the ball into the pond next time?" Coach Hogan snapped. "Yeah, Trent, watch where you kick the ball, you idiot," Allen laughed. "If you just stopped it with your head, it wouldn't have gone that far. My head's more valuable than yours." "Hustle!" the coach shouted, sending both boys off running. Sorry about them. The men's soccer coach is Coach Docking, but he's out of town this week, so I've been overseeing both teams' practices for now. But I'm the women's soccer coach. Recently, we had a few students drop out of the program, and it would be awesome if we could get a helping hand. Are you interested in playing?" he asked. I blinked a few times, wondering if he might vanish into thin air if I did. Was this really happening? "Are you serious?" I asked. "I am. I mean, I can't guarantee you'll get in, but I'd be more than willing to let you try out. If you're interested, come to the soccer stadium on Friday at 6 p.m. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet, reaching in and yanking out a small white card with his name and phone number on it. "This is my card. Let me know if there are any problems, all right? Tryouts again, Friday night, 6 p.m. sharp." Thank you, I squeaked, unsure what to say. But will I be able to play since I have, 4 arms?
Well, there's no rule that I know of that says you can't. Coach Hogan winked before running back to Trenton Allen. You have a good day, and hopefully I see you Friday.
As he ran off, I found myself just staring at the card in my hand, feeling both light as a feather and like my body was made of cement at the same time. I was so flattered and happy by his offer that I could barely contain myself from smiling. But I was also so terrified. This was so much more than I'd bargained for or prepared for. Was I ready for this? Was this what I wanted? Could I afford to try it? What would Mom and Dad think? I whispered. Oh my gosh, this is exciting and scary.
I suddenly remembered why I was running earlier. I took off running as fast as I could across the pond. I glanced at my watch to see it was 2:10.
No.
I burst through the door and turned the corner, running headlong into a young woman with tan skin and dark hair.
Ouch!
I rubbed my head and looked at the girl in shock and pained confusion. The girl was on all fours, searching and digging through the scattered notebooks and binders.
I'm so sorry, are you okay? I asked.
She nodded but didn't say anything. I held out my hand to help her up, but she ignored it and kept searching. After a moment, I decided it was best to just leave her, and I began to walk away. When I saw something under the bench by the window, I leaned down to pick it up. It was small and shaped like a tube. It had a weird set of lights on it, and on one side felt soft to the touch. It felt cool and light on my hand. I didn't know what to make of it, but it was really cool looking. As I stared at it, I felt the girl from earlier tapping my shoulder. I turned and she pointed at the little tube in my hand and held it out. Is this yours? She asked. She held out her hand pleadingly. She just nodded and I didn't speak. I was getting a little irritated. You could just say yes, I grumbled. Here. She took it from me and instantly pressed it to her throat and then opened her mouth.
Thank you so much.
The voice that came out of her was shocking. It wasn't normal. It was like some kind of electronic edge to it, like a synthesized voice that you hear sometimes from a computer. It was strange and unnatural.
What on earth? I cried. Sorry, my name is Andrea. I didn't say anything because I can't. My vocal cords were damaged when I was little, so speaking with a synthesizer is easier. Without it, no one can understand me. It sounds like a computer or something. My father modeled the voice software to sound as normal as possible. It's definitely not perfect. I clearly sound robotic or something. That's why it sounds this way. He's actually a professor here in computer engineering.
Andrea giggled through her device. It was less strange somehow hearing it now that I knew, and she seemed much nicer now that she had it.
Sorry, I just get so used to telling people about it that I sometimes talk on autopilot. You know what I mean? Well, I'm Jenna, and sorry for the misunderstanding. It's no problem. Nice to meet you, Jenna, but I think we're both running late. Where is your classroom? She asked. I think it's room at 118. Andrea beamed. I know the way, and it's past mine. I'll show you. She pulled me along, and for the first time since I'd been here, someone actually hadn't said something about my arms. She had clearly seen them, but hadn't said a word about it. Don't you think, sorry, but don't you think I'm weird? For having 4 arms? You didn't say anything, but you clearly saw them, I asked.
Andrea laughed at her recorder and looked back at me with a smile.
I think it's cool. I didn't say anything because I thought you might be tired of people drawing attention to it. Believe me, I know what it's like to be weird.
I beamed back and followed her all the way to my room, silently thanking God above for having me bump into 2 very special people. A coach who might be able to open up new opportunities, and a new friend who actually understood what it meant to stand out. All right, and that was Chapter 8. All right, we will take down this image. And we're moving on to Tomaki. I am so excited. Spent a lot of time this week working on these. Hannah will tell you. I was very busy. Very busy working on these. Let me pull up a picture of Tomaki. There we go. There he is. That'll do. All right. Raven, was a professor in the previous chapter based off of one of yours? Yes, she was. Wendy Weinhold was based off of a real professor I had. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're moving on to the Tale of Tomoki. For those who don't know what this story is about, I wrote this story as my very first superhero story about a young Saiyan, yes, I know, on Earth, yes, I know, in an alternate world who was supposed to go on his own fights and adventures. We are currently on the third arc of the Tale of Tomoki, because the first arc was the Mamaragon arc, then we had the Vokon arc, now we've got the Daikon arc. So, let's get started. Victoria! Mr. Rhodes called as he walked into his house. He was carrying groceries under his arms and he was smiling from ear to ear. Sweetie, are you all right? I thought we could grill burgers tonight. There was no answer, but Chief Rhodes could hear the faint sound of the TV on in the other room. He frowned curiously and set down the grocery bags in the kitchen. Sweetheart? Again, no answer. He walked to the living room and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Victoria still sitting on the couch. Her eyes were still bandaged and she was leaning back on the cushion. There you are. Honey, are you all right? I was calling when... Ah, Chief Rhodes, I presume. Chief Rhodes spun at the sound of the voice, having barely recognized another person in the room, but she was standing right there. She was a young black woman with short, dark hair, mesmerizing blue eyes, and wearing a leather jacket with fur trim. She was smiling at him and sitting in the armchair he usually used for reading. Rhodes's hand instantly went to his hip for his gun, but Victoria smiled. I'm sorry, Daddy, but I was caught up speaking with Miss... You can call me Ren, she said with a polite nod. I was just speaking with Victoria about who I represent, but you're actually the man I came to see.
Ren, Chief Rhodes asked. Ren who?
Renee Frost, if you need the full name. And I represent an organization called SCAR. We're a small upcoming emergency response unit meant to deal with supernatural and extraterrestrial threats.
I wasn't informed of this new law enforcement agency, Rhodes growled.
Ren nodded sadly. Yeah, we've been on the down low for a while. I only joined up a few months ago myself. I think there are currently 4 members besides me, and we were hoping to do some recruiting in Sean City, given the number of mutants and metahumans you got here.
And you had Tomoki in mind, I take it, Rhodes asked. Tell me, were you the one he spoke to me about last week who turned a quarter of Taiga Park into a winter wonderland?
Yeah, and I really am sorry about that. I just got a little excited. He really is quite powerful. Yes, he is, Victoria agreed a little distantly. Most of our members in the SCAR are mutants or metahumans who went through alterations, experimentation, or just various changes, but Tomoki is a born and bred fighter. I was hoping I could learn a bit more about him, if there was any way to win him over.
If he's not interested, I'm not going to force him, Rhodes challenged. And I still haven't given my approval of this SCAR organization of yours being active in Sean City. Who runs and funds it? What kind of members are you recruiting from? And where? Who...
You came here to ask about Tomoki? Victoria asked. This brought both Mr. Rhodes and Ren to silence as Victoria sat up a little. I'll tell you what you need to know about him, Miss Ren, but you won't like what I have to say. Won't know until I hear, Ren giggled. Victoria smiled. All right, then the first thing you need to know is that Tomoki is afraid. Ren's smile vanished in an instant. Afraid of what? That Daikon fella? Victoria shook her head, and though her eyes couldn't be seen, it was clear they were sad. Daikon isn't what Tomoki's afraid of, Victoria answered. Daikon just reminded Tomoki of what he is, and that's what he's afraid of.
What he is? Rhodes asked curiously. Well, what exactly is he?
Victoria leaned back sadly and bit her lip as a gentle tear ran from under her bandages. He doesn't know, and the answer is what frightens him most, I think. But when he finally figures out who he is...
Victoria's voice trailed off, and Rhodes and Ren both gulped in realization. What was Tomoki? What answer would he draw about himself? And what would happen when he finally figured it out? Hosha watched as armed guards began marching up and down the command ship, orbiting planet Earth lazily, through the sensation of tensity was palpable. He stared out of the observation window, watching the slowly spinning orb before him. Though the world looked like any other pristine world he'd visited, he knew that on this planet lay some of the most powerful warriors he'd yet seen, and that thought had him a bit spooked. Captain, a soldier spoke up. Hosha turned to see a few officers in familiar uniforms saluting. One was holding a small tray in his hands with a blue light glowing from the flat surface. The Galactic Council would like a word, sir. I'll bet they would. Very well.
Hosha turned to face the line of officers as the middle one held out the tray. As he did, the blue light grew ever brighter, and out of it emerged a holographic image. On it were 5 hovering blue faces, each one looking vastly different from the others. One round and bug-eyed like a great fly, another sleek, feminine, and soft with long tendrils for hair that ran past her face. Another was hard and scaled like a reptile with fangs poking from either side of its mouth. The fourth looked like a big fish with a large mouth that didn't seem to quite close properly, and eyes on either side of its head. The final head had 4 eyes, each one on a stalk growing out of either side of its face. These were the 5 senior members of the Galactic Council. Of course, they weren't the only members. There were no less than 89 planets that made up the Galactic Council, and thus each planet had a representative. These 5 were just the only ones who could be spared to deal with this issue.
Captain Hosha, the bughead growled, the report we've received is far from satisfactory. According to your written report, you have yet to apprehend Daikon, and instead are delivering the remains of 3 members of the Galactic Poachers, including Vokan?
That is accurate, sir.
And I saw what was sent back. We can barely identify that puddle of material. What did you do, disintegrate him?
We needed him for questioning, the fishman snapped. That fat fool Joker is as dense as he is thick, and we can't get any intel out of him. Explain why and how you killed Vokan. Hosha hesitated a moment. He hadn't killed Vokan. It had been Tomiki, but how could the council react to hearing a rogue saying besides Daikon was on Earth? Things could get far worse here and fast. Best to not mention Tomiki for now. Vokan underestimated the citizens of this planet. They put up a strong resistance, which made defeating him easier than expected, Hosha answered.
Earth? The woman asked dreamily. I was led to believe it was a backwater world with an average life form power reading of no higher than 1,000 at the absolute highest.
It seems there are exceptions, ma'am, Hosha answered, wishing the topic would move on to other areas. Avoiding discussing Tomiki was difficult. The stalkman clicked and whirred a few times, his language bizarre but understandable. No, sir. I do not currently know what Daikon is, Hosha answered. I have men investigating and searching for him, but I'd rather them not get too close and incur his wrath.
When was his last known sighting?
3 weeks ago in a city called Shan. He engaged with some of the locals. He grew bored and flew off to find more chaos to reap. That is the extent of my knowledge at this time.
Not a great deal to go on, the reptile man snarled. Daikon has become a real pain in our side. Various council members are calling for his head due to what he's done to their planets. This Saiyan menace needs to be held to account.
I agree, sirs and madam. I will continue to pursue the Saiyan.
Hosha returned to leave before he was interrupted by the woman. A moment, Captain, the woman said with a misty, soft voice. We have one more order of business to tell you. Councilman de Freischut of Lepine II has come to us with most grave news. New rogues have landed on Earth.
Affiliates of the Poachers? Hosha asked.
No. 2 are hunters of the Montanzer people.
Hosha's eyes widened a fraction. The Montanzer here. They rarely leave Lupine II. What brought them to Earth? That's what we're calling to inform you about, Captain, the fishman growled. They are pursuing a dangerous refugee from their planet. One of the tainted. Hosha's face went from confused to horrified. A tainted Montanzer is on planet? You can confirm that, Hosha asked. There's no telling what will happen if the tainted gets loose and spreads her corruption. Or worse, if she crosses paths with Daikon. You are to extend aid to the Montanzer hunters in any way they require. This is a top priority, Captain. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how dangerous the situation may become if we are not careful. The fishman agreed. Hosha nodded, not needing to outline the danger. A tainted Montanzer was not nearly as powerful or destructive as a Saiyan, but their unique form of corruption, if left unchecked, could cause a catastrophe. And if she ran into Daikon and the 2 crossed paths, I understand.
We are sending you the contact information and coordinates of the Montanzer hunters on planet. Rendezvous with them immediately, the reptile man said.
The tray hologram then vanished with a blink, and Hosha found himself grabbing his helmet and putting it on swiftly, as all the officers in front of him exchanged nervous looks.
Well, get to your stations and prepare for orders. We have a planet to protect.
As the soldiers ran to do their duty, Hosha silently cursed his rotten luck. Sir, one of the officers said.
What is it? Hosha asked.
Sir, if things are as bad as they sound,
Go on.
What's the, sorry to ask, sir, but what is the worst-case contingency on this matter?
You don't want to know, Hosha answered.
As the officer walked away, he then looked out the bridge towards the earth.
Tomaki, you better come out of hiding soon. Things are about to get really ugly for your world. And if we cannot stop this tainted, we may have to destroy the planet.
And that is chapter 34. All right. Chapter 35.
You're improving. Your reaction time is much quicker than before,
Hayato said with a smirk. I shook my head, breathing heavily. I'm still not good enough.
You're trying to rush progress, Tomaki,
Hayato warned. I growled and hit the tree I was standing beside and making it tremble. Well, I have to hurry, Master. We only have a week before Daikon comes back. 1 week to find out how to beat him. Hayato frowned darkly and then walked forward.
There's more to Daikon bothering you, boy.
I can see it all too well.
Hayato growled. You're scared of something, and until you overcome that fear, there's no point in prolonging this training any further. So start explaining.
Master, you know what frightens me. I'm afraid of becoming like Daikon.
Why? Hayato snapped. You've never been like him before.
But I have, I answered harshly. You said it yourself. When I went after Vokon, I went after him for vengeance. To kill him. To get even with him.
And you regretted it in the end,
Hayato added. That's not entirely true, sir, I answered coldly. Hayato blinked.
What?
The truth is, I don't regret it. I'm glad he's dead. Yes, I know I shouldn't have done it. I know that I crossed a line, and it hurts me so much to know I let you and Mom down. But I don't mind that Vokon is dead. He was a monster. A disgusting, ugly bastard who deserved everything I gave him. And when I was fighting him, when I go Super Saiyan, I enjoy every moment of it. It's like I'm someone else. It's like I'm turning into Daikon. I was upset about how disappointed you were, how disappointed Mom would be, but deep down I can't deny how I felt fighting him, watching him struggle against me, watching me fight someone worth my power.
You're starting to sound like...
And that's what I'm scared of, Master. Sounding like him, being like him. What if I go Super Saiyan again and I forget who I am? What if I become something I'm not? Who else will I kill? How long before I start traveling the stars looking for other races and species to conquer like him? Or like my parents? There was a long silence between us, and I stared up at Hayato at last, and he grit his teeth.
I think I'm starting to understand your concerns now. You're not worried about having to be like Daikon to stop him. You're worried that you'll become like him regardless, because of what you are.
Yes, sir. Hayato closed his eyes a moment and then nodded.
To be truthful, this is something that has concerned me since Belle told me about you, he admitted. You're not human. You're living amongst foreigners. I always thought about what might happen if your own kind ever showed up to take you with them or to claim you. And now it seems that it's happened. Perhaps meeting Daikon has started to stir a familiarity in you.
I don't know, sir. I just don't know, I admitted.
Well, then let's break for today, Hayato conceded. You're in no mental state to keep training. We'll try again after you've calmed down.
I only have a week left, sir.
Then I suggest you do some deep meditation and try to come to terms with who you want to be, son.
Hayato snapped back.
I don't care what you were born as or what your kind has done. Who you are has always been your choice to make. I know it's not an easy one, and I know that you're scared to make this decision. But your destiny is not set in stone by blood or by me. Go contemplate on that in the woods for a while, and when you're ready, we'll continue your training.
Run, Faye! Get away!
She'd run. She'd run as fast as she could and as far as she could. And yet she felt no safer.
Don't look back! Find the Galactic Patrol! Tell them! Warn them!
And the following sound of laughter still echoed in Faye's ears. She'd screamed as the forest exploded all around her from the force of the eruption. Tears ran down her face as she screamed and tried with all her might to flee the monster behind her. The Saiyans were supposed to be extinct, a dead people, and yet one had been there. And she can't be dead. She can't.
Are you all right?
Faye became aware of a voice speaking to her, someone touching her, though she could not see them. She reached out to the voice. She did not know it, and yet it seemed kind. It pierced through the laughter of the Saiyan and the scream of her mentor.
Wake up. You are safe. It is okay.
With a shriek, Faye felt her eyes burst open, the darkness shattering like glass as she realized she was laying on the cold ground. Blades of grass all around her, and above her stood a figure wearing heavy armor and their face hidden by a helmet. She recognized the insignia on his breastplate. He was with the Galactic Patrol. Her eyes widened and she reached out towards the armored man.
Easy, you're still disoriented,
the figure spoke, his accent thick and his movements precise.
I am Hosha, commanding captain of the Galactic Patrol forces on planet. Who are you?
Faye Bloodrock.
You're a Montanzer, Hosha whispered. A young one.
Faye normally would have bristled at that. There was no question that she was young to be a hunter, but she had proven herself to her family and to her people. However, at this moment, she did feel that youth, that inexperience, and that fear.
Where is your mentor? You could not have come alone.
The shriek of pain and death she'd heard, the explosion of raw keys shattering reality itself, the sick laughter. Faye whimpered like a frightened dog and curled up fearfully. Hosha didn't need an answer. Her reaction was all he needed to know.
Was it the tainted you were hunting?
No, Faye cried. It was a Saiyan. A Saiyan! Sir, there's a Saiyan loose on the planet.
Was he wearing red armor?
Hosha asked. Faye nodded.
Yes, and he had this cold laugh, a long tail, big muscles, and...
Daikon, then, Hosha growled. If you ran across him, I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do about your mentor. We have to get you off-world. You're not safe here. But how did he not hunt you down too? Surely he would have found you by your energy.
Evelyn, my mentor. In their struggle, she damaged his scouters so that we could attempt to escape,
Faye explained, remembering, thinking back to how it all started. They'd landed on the planet to hunt down the escaped tainted. They began to establish a trail to follow when suddenly he appeared. He didn't know what they were, but he knew they weren't from this planet. He could sense Avalon's high power level on that cursed scouter of his, and he wanted to test her skill. She attacked first without warning and damaged his scouter with a powerful kick to his head. The attack had caught the Saiyan by surprise, and he was stunned, growling and swearing, but Avalon had not waited for him to get up. She had the instincts of a wild animal and knew a predator when she saw one. She knew they couldn't beat him, so their only chance was to run and hide. Even with his lost scouter, though, the Saiyan was still able to pursue and catch Avalon. She turned to fight him and buy Faye time to flee, but she hadn't lasted long against the pissed-off Saiyan warrior. And then Faye remembered the horrible scream as her mentor and friend Avalon had been destroyed. She stayed hidden for what felt like hours as the Saiyan searched for her, but without his scouter to find her power level, he had given up and left. It's the only reason that she was still alive.
His scouter is damaged. He'll have to fix it.
She explained. Hosha nodded.
Well, fixing a scouter does not take very long, but in that time, we can move without his notice, Hosha whispered. That might just help us.
Faye looked at Hosha curiously. I don't understand. How does that help us?
Daikon isn't interested in you or your mentor. He's on this planet because there's something else he wants. You were just something to kill his time, Hosha explained.
The thought that killing her mentor was just the way this monster passed the time only made Faye bristle and spit furiously. Hosha raised a hand to calm her.
I meant no offense. But your mentor did not die in vain. Without his scouter to keep an eye on our power levels, the patrol can move more freely. We have to go and speak to Tomaki, and quickly.
Tomaki? Faye asked.
He's the reason Daikon's still sticking around on this planet. He's another Saiyan.
Another Saiyan?
Tomaki's not like Daikon, at least I don't think he is. Daikon is obsessed with fighting him to prove his superiority, and Tomaki is currently training to defeat him. The window of opportunity might be just what we need to get the better of that bastard. If anyone can stop Daikon, it's him. And I have a plan.
Daikon sat by his pod with the tools to fix his scouter. It was burnt in a few spots, and sparks flew from it when he prodded it in the right places. He growled and reattached a few wires. He knew how to fix it. Part of his training had involved learning the ins and outs of scouter maintenance, but it was boring. It was so very boring, and it frustrated him that these blasted two strangers had gotten the drop on him. As he worked, he suddenly heard the shuffling of something. He spun to look and saw a woman by the clearing. She had dark skin and long, dark hair. She had golden eyes, and Daikon was suddenly reminded of the two aliens he'd just fought. Was she one of them, too?
Who are you? He demanded.
I am Antoinette of the Montanzer.
The Montanzer? Never heard of them,
Daikon growled.
Nor should you. They aren't worth your time, Antoinette said quickly, bowing low. They are a weak and distasteful people. Disgusting and foolish in every way.
You're aware you're describing your own race, Daikon snorted.
I know, and I don't care, she hissed. I fled from them to this planet because I'm an outlaw, just like you. I fled to save myself, and I thought perhaps we could...
An outlaw like me?
Daikon asked, suddenly setting his scouter aside and turning to face her. Antoinette suddenly backed up fast and bowed low apologetically.
Like me? Tell me, did you slaughter your comrades one after the other? Did you betray your king, your queen, and your entire race because they held you back? Did you declare war against your whole planet and then learn of their destruction before you could ever get the chance to truly test their merit?
No.
Then you're not like me at all, Daikon hissed. What are you then?
Antoinette did not answer at first, but only gulped.
I'm tainted, she whispered. Born with a curse. Born to destroy everything around me.
Fascinating,
Daikon answered with a roll of his eyes.
So just a disease-ridden nobody. Not worth killing. Be gone!
He turned and walked away.
I can help you, she cried. My curse. It can make you powerful. It can make you unstoppable. If you'll help me destroy the rest of the Montanzer, I'll...
Before she could finish, Daikon rounded on her, his hand on her throat. Help me! I don't want your help. What an outrageous suggestion. A Saiyan needs no one. I don't want your help, nor do I need it. But if it's any consolation to you, Tainted, when I finish killing the weakling on this planet that calls himself a Saiyan, I'll find your Montanzer race and exterminate them for you, just to kill my boredom. Now get out of here before I destroy you with them.
He threw Antoinette away from him and she crashed into a tree, coughing and sputtering before running away fast. She was biting her lip and snarling bitterly. But she hadn't given up yet. Sooner or later, Daikon would see things her way. And when he did, he'd beg her for her blessing. And that was chapter 35. Phew. All right. Go ahead and swap out images. Moving on to Monster Club. I'm going to go ahead and pick an image for that. While I do, y'all can talk about what you thought. Let's see. I think I'll use this one. It's a little small, but it's a picture of Annie, so we'll increase the size and put it right there. Here we go. All right. I think that'll do. All right, so, and just to say this about Daikon, some people were asking if he was basically like a Vegeta 2.0. I tried my best to not make him like Vegeta. I wanted to make him more of an asshole than Vegeta, and I know that's kind of frightening to think about more of an asshole than Vegeta, but that was the goal. All right, time for Monster Club. We're picking up on Chapter 47 of Monster Club, written June 8th, 2017. So just, how do you do it? Abraham asked of the empty air as he walked between the walls of the tire warehouse. Solomon, Asher, Michelle, you stay strong no matter what. You lead without any problem, but me? What on earth can I do? I don't know how to lead or what the right direction is. He sat down on a stack of tires and looked around him. There, laying behind one of the tire piles, was a large stain, red and sticky. Abraham knew what it was without inspecting, but curiosity and intuitive longing pushed him to go check it out. As he walked closer, he drew back, seeing the pool of blood on the ground. He shook his head and started to walk away when a small glint caught his eye. He glanced back and saw a very familiar object in the blood. "What's this doing here?" he asked darkly. Abraham reached down and, careful to keep his fingers out of the blood, used the very tips of his index finger and thumb to extract the heavy pistol from the blood. It wasn't just a pistol, though. It was one of the two that Asher always carried around with him. Had he dropped it in the struggle? No, he wouldn't just randomly drop one of these guns. Had he maybe wanted it to be found? Abraham set it down on a tire and grabbed a cloth to clean it off, all the while wondering what it meant to find Asher's gun hidden in the tire warehouse. There was simply no way it was a coincidence. "Everything okay, Abraham?" Abraham turned to see Katie slithering towards him, Annie walking next to her sleepily. "I found Asher's gun," Abraham answered honestly, holding out the weapon. Katie blinked and sighed. "I probably dropped it in the struggle." "Asher doesn't just drop things," Abraham whispered. "He'd always been really careful about this, and he takes pretty good care of his gun." "Well, yeah, but fights are chaotic," Katie argued. "He might have gotten overwhelmed. What are you saying, he meant to drop it?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy," Abraham grumbled. "You're tired. Go get some sleep. We can handle things for a while ourselves," Katie instructed. Abraham didn't answer, but simply stared at the blood and then the gun. He finally felt a hand touch his shoulder, and he looked to see Katie's eyes staring at him with a look of genuine concern. "Abraham, please go rest. Don't stress so much." "All right, Katie, I will. Just wait here for Sarah and let me know if Tori comes back with Tamil." "Sleep," Katie snapped, shoving Abraham towards the mats in the back of the warehouse. Abraham walked to them and sat down, his head in his hand and his other hand clutching the pistol. He glanced around and he shook his head. He didn't even know how to use this thing. Yet Asher knew. Another prime example of how unfit he was to lead or protect this club. How can Abraham protect them if he can't do even the simplest of things, like use a gun? He lay back at last and closed his eyes, allowing his body to rest. And before he knew it, he was drifting into deep sleep. "Abraham! Abraham, wake up!" Abraham sat up sleepily, rubbing his eyes. Tori stood him up in front of him, her body jumping up and down in concern. "What's wrong? Did you find Tamil?" "I did. He's not wanting to come back," she said. "Bring him back," Abraham instructed. "There's no time moping and feeling sorry for ourselves." "Well, I mean, I tried that, but..." "What's wrong?" Abraham finally asked. Tori sighed and held up the severed head of Tamil, which was looking down and away from Abraham, who was now looking about ready to vomit at the severed head. "Oh my God," Abraham groaned. "What happened to the rest of him?" "I tried flying him back. His head came off, though. He held onto the tree too tightly," Tori whimpered. "Tamil, are you that depressed?" Abraham demanded. Tamil didn't look at him, just glared away, biting his lip. "You can't do that, man. We need to stick together or we'll all fall apart." "Fall apart because his head came off. I get it," Abraham snarled at Tori. "It not matter," Tamil grumbled. "What does it matter? The club?" "I just want to be alone," Tamil grumbled. "I know you're upset. We all are, but we can't let ourselves be divided right now." Tori again giggled about the divided comment. Abraham gave her a snarl again. "We already divided, Abraham," Tamil pointed out.
Abraham sighed and nodded his head. Yeah, okay, I know, I get it. Which is why it's so important that we stay together so we can figure out how to save Asher and Michelle. How you know we can? Tamil hissed darkly. Listen, I know things look bad, but just listen to me. We're all going to get through that. You're not to Michelle! Tamil finally snapped. Abraham froze up and Tamil's eyes were filled with tears. He couldn't see Abraham's face, obviously, but somehow he knew exactly where to focus his gray pupils. Abraham narrowed his own eyes and looked at him. You know what? You're right. I'm not, he finally sneered. But you're Tamil, and I thought you were better than this. Abraham turned and marched away, carrying Asher's gun with him in his trembling hand. What should I do with... Go get Sarah to help you pick up the rest of him and bring him back here. I don't care right now, Abraham snapped. Abraham, what? Abraham snapped back. Tori yelped and looked down in shame for being shouted at. Abraham's eyes widened as he realized how hostile he'd sounded and let out a long sigh. I'm losing it. I'm sorry, Tori. I didn't mean to shout at you. No, it's okay, she whispered, though her wings were still drooping. You're just stressed, is all. I'm not cut out for this leader thing. Tamil, you're right about that. Tamil's head perked up a bit at the mentioning of his name. I'm not Michelle. And I'm not Asher. I'm just me. But you are enough. Abraham spun around at the sound. Standing behind him, wearing her hair let down and looking rather frustrated, was Sarah. Her 6 red eyes were all burrowing into Abraham angrily as she marched towards him. Tamil, she said, you should be ashamed of yourself, she shouted. Michelle will be furious with you if she were here. Well, she's not, Tamil snapped. Sarah bristled angrily and reached behind her, grabbing several lines of thread and tying them swiftly around his mouth, making Tamil start screaming angrily into the silk. That'll keep you quiet until you cool off. She then slapped his cheek as punishment, and she turned to Abraham. And you, cool down. You take a breath and stop trying to fill Michelle's boots. I don't want to be the leader, I argued. But you're putting the responsibility on your own shoulders, Sarah noticed. While she let that sink in, she looked at Tori and winked. You go find Tamil's body and leave his head here. Bring the body back here and I'll stitch it up later. Okay, Tori agreed, flying out the open window into the sky, clearly glad to be away from that. Once she was gone, Sarah then looked back to Abraham, her eyes sympathetic but also stern. Thanks for that. We need to talk, Abraham, she sighed. Where's Katie, Calypso, and Annie? Calypso's getting a bath. Katie took Annie to the roof to look at the stars. It's late out, after all, Sarah replied. Now stop dodging the point. Sarah cleared her throat and leaned forward. You're not Michelle, Abraham, but you don't have to be. Be your own person and trust us to know how to take care of ourselves. But we need a leader, right? Michelle just helped settle disputes and made critical decisions when they needed to be made. But she trusted us enough to let us do what we needed. She walked close and gave Abraham a gentle hug, careful not to smother him. You're trying and thinking about all of us, and we love you for that, Abraham. Even Tamil does. Tamil mumbled. Ignore him. He's being a baby. Sarah rolled her 6 eyes. My point is that you don't need to worry about us so much. Where did that even come from anyway? You seem pretty obsessed with looking out for Tamil and everyone else all of a sudden. The way you took charge earlier. Solomon. What about him? Sarah asked. He was my grandpa, Abraham answered. Sarah let go of Abraham in stunned amazement, and all of her eyes were enormously widened. I found out recently that he was my grandpa. I felt like I had to, do what he did. Take care of everyone. Solomon was, Sarah whispered. Wow. A lot of things just added up right there. How did you find out? At the farm. That ass who built the clubhouse told me that I was his... The farm? The farm? Sarah asked. The farm! Abraham cried, suddenly beginning from ear to ear. They can help! Help? Sarah asked. How? And with what? Maybe they can help us maybe they can help keep some of us safe for a while, or help us hunt down the Dawnbringers, or they could slow down, Sarah interrupted. You're getting ahead of yourself. We don't know if they want to help, and even if they do, is it right to involve them in our problems? It was a fair question. Abraham looked down at the gun in his hand and held it up to show Sarah. She looked at it carefully and then back at Abraham, concern still in her expression. I found this. It's Asher's gun, and I don't know why he'd leave it, but without it... Abraham, it's all right. We can solve this ourselves. I don't think we can, Abraham interjected. I want to believe we can, but realistically, I don't think we can. There was a long pause before Abraham spoke again. Look, Sarah, back at the beach.
Asher told me that I was your hope, that I could prove monsters and humans could interact and live together, that I could be the bridge between monsters and humans, or some other cliche bullcrap like that. Sarah didn't reply, but she did give a slow nod. This club is my family, Sarah, and I want to save it. Leader or not, I will save it, not just because of who my grandpa is, and not because we need a leader again, but because the thought of being apart from my family, the one that I've worked so hard to find, hurts. I agree, Sarah sighed, but do you really have to go back to the farm right now? You just got back, and I'm not gonna go yet, but I will need to, Abraham answered. I don't know how to use Asher's gun. No one here does, I think. But I'm willing to bet that Christina at the farm does. She's lived among humans before in a friendly way. I want her to teach me how to use it, for one thing. You want to use Asher's gun? Why? I think that's why he left it, Abraham replied. I think he wants us to fight back. And that was chapter 47. Now we can go to chapter 48. All right. Sorry, I needed a drink real quick. All right. Who drew Annie here? That was Yumira, a friend. The feeling was nothing like Abraham had felt before. There was both a sense of pride and also a sense of fear that went along with this position he found himself in. He had told Katie to go and scout the area to determine if she could find out where the Dawnbringers had run off to. Sarah was back at work mending the defenses, what little there were of the hideout. Tamil was still pouting, but was in charge of keeping Annie company. With any luck, she'd rub off on him. Calypso was sleeping currently, since the entire club was taking sleep shifts. Abraham didn't feel comfortable allowing everyone to sleep at once, not when Asher and Michelle were gone. They took turns sleeping and getting rest. Next up would be Katie when she got back. The other club members not accounting for in the area was Tori, but Abraham knew where she was heading. While he wasn't entirely sure about enlisting them, the farm group could provide the club with shelter, help, assistance, anything of value that could possibly help get Asher and Michelle back. Tori was on her way to go beg the farm group to offer aid. Abraham turned and looked out the window, but the dark clouds caused the window to have a mirror-like effect, allowing him to see his own reflection. And he didn't even recognize himself. Staring back at him was a boy who looked 4 years older than he should have been, stubble beginning to appear like peach fuzz on his chin and cheeks. His hair was wild and needed cutting. His favorite blue jacket that Sarah made for him was torn in places, and he was muddy. He probably stank, though, but by this point he'd grown numb to the condition of odor, since Michelle oftentimes smelled just as bad. In fact, he couldn't remember the last time he'd had a proper shower. He touched the mirror as if he could touch his own face and sighed in deep remorse. How had it all come to this? Abraham? Abraham turned around to see Calypso had woken up and was walking up to him. Are you okay? She brushed her long, white hair back and he smiled. I just realized how dirty we all are. Wish we could get cleaned up. If you want, I can get us some water to bathe in, Calypso offered. Let's wait until Katie gets back so she can get some sleep. Then you can go. Calypso didn't answer, but just nodded. Is something wrong? Things are changing so fast, she pointed out. And I want our friends back. So do I. How will we get them back, she asked. Well, that was the question of the century. I don't know yet. Calypso didn't especially like that answer, and neither did Abraham, but he didn't know what else to tell her. He was confused and he was worked up, but he wouldn't be dishonest either. He couldn't afford to be. After another hour of waiting, finally Katie came slithering inside. Calypso smiled and the two hugged each other tightly. Thank goodness you're okay, Calypso said. They never saw you, did they? Of course not. There's no Dawnbringer within 2 miles of us. That's good, Abraham added, approaching the girls. Katie brushed her hair behind her ear and nodded. But their tracks have gone west. I think they're going back to the old asylum. Asylum? Abraham asked. The Dawnbringers in this area set up their headquarters in a condemned asylum. It's well fortified and used for holding captured non-humans, Katie answered coldly. It's where they held me. Abraham placed his hands on his hips and exhaled through his lips as he placed slowly between the walls of the hideout. Calypso and Katie both looked apologetically at each other. Sadly, they had added more concern to Abraham. What do you want us to do? Calypso asked. Nothing yet, I guess. You guess? Damn it, I don't know, Abraham gasped in frustration. I just don't know yet.
As he said this, he leaned against a stack of dusty old tires and closed his eyes, rubbing the skin between them. I don't know.
Abraham, it's okay, Katie assured him. None of us know what to do about the DB right now. Let's just calm down and take things a step at a time. I'll go gather water for us, Calypso offered. An ice bath might help.
How are you going to carry it all back here? Abraham asked.
I'll get Sarah's help, Calypso assured him, smiling. Just relax, all right?
Calypso hurried off before either Katie or Abraham could speak.
You know she means well, Katie giggled. I don't think she plans things much in advance, though.
I'm the same way that way, I think, Abraham muttered. Do you think the farm group will help us?
How should I know? Katie asked. I never met them.
The two fell silent for a moment and Katie sighed.
I'm sorry, that was harsher than I meant it to be.
It wasn't. You're fine.
No, it's... Abraham,
Katie bit her lip and then slid closer and coiled her long tail up so she could sit on her own coils as if on a cushion.
Look.
Yes?
I'm not good at these kind of things, all right? But I'm going to try really hard to just speak my mind.
I never took you for the kind of person who kept things bottled up, Abraham teased, causing Katie to flush.
Okay, I get aggravated, and sometimes I do let my anger get the better of me, but that's not what I mean, and you know it.
Sorry. What is it? Abraham smirked.
The truth is, I don't know how to explain it, but I care about you. I guess it's all the things that happened since our trip to the beach, but I just can't stand the thought of losing anyone else, and I'm glad that you're here with us. Despite what you think, you're a decent leader, and we all rely on you. Even me.
Are you serious? Abraham asked, honestly surprised.
Don't take any of what I say the wrong way. I just don't want you to think you're doing a bad job. You're doing fine, and we're all proud of you. Michelle and Asher would be too, she continued quickly.
Katie crossed her arms and looked down.
That's what I had to say.
I appreciate it, Abraham sighed.
Abraham! Abraham!
Katie and Abraham both turned around to see the small figure of Tori the harpy come flying in from the sky, beaming brightly and landing with a thunk on the concrete floor just outside of the building. She ran in excitedly, her dimples nearly touching her cheekbones. Abraham, I got them!
Lower your voice, Katie hissed.
What do you mean you got them? Abraham asked.
The farm gang! They're gonna come and help! They're coming right now! She squealed.
Katie's eyes widened as she turned to Abraham, who appeared just as stunned. Tori, go get Tamila and Annie and tell them to come here immediately. Then find Sarah and Calypso. Make sure they get plenty of drinking water for our guests. Tori nodded, giggling, and despite herself, taking off to the sky.
Well, she makes a good messenger pigeon, Katie pointed out.
I hate to just use her as a messenger, but we need that right now. The group is spread too thin, Abraham remarked.
So this farm group, what are they going to be like? Katie asked. That David guy from last time didn't seem all that friendly.
With any luck, they'll be exactly what we need to get back at Michelle and Asher. First, we need to talk to Christina.
Who?
Their leader. I think you'll like her. You have a lot in common. Abraham snickered. It was an hour before the farm group arrived on site. David was leading with Jelly and Christina riding on his back. Penn sat on top of his head, and walking beside him was the Minotaur himself, Alexander. They were dressed in their attire from the last time we'd seen them, though Christina looked a little bit more relaxed, wearing jeans with torn knees and her leather jacket with a bandana tied around her neck. Her shades kept her eyes from being visible, but Abraham could tell from the smile on her face there was no malice in her expression.
Didn't think we'd be seeing you so soon, she admitted, climbing off David's back and walking over to shake Abraham's hand. Just couldn't say bye for good, could you?
I wish it was under a happier circumstance, Abraham answered, knowing it would sound awkward and probably silly, but Christina didn't seem to notice.
So you moved into a tired garage? Alex asked, tucking his large hands in his pocket and smirking. Not a bad place to hole up. It worked for our needs, Katie agreed, as if noticing for the first time everyone's eyes fell on Katie. Christina herself seemed a bit surprised. A Lamia? She asked. Yeah, Katie replied. Well, I'm a Gorgon, Christina explained. As if to reveal to her truth, her hair came to life, a mess of wriggling and hissing serpents. Katie's eyes widened. She stared a minute. Well, that's different.
What's the big deal? David asked. So what if you're a Lamia?
Lamia and Gorgon are, in some cultures, believed to be sister races, Penn explained, fluttering down to sit on Christina's shoulder. Well, maybe, but I certainly don't know you, Katie growled. Whether our races are familiar is irrelevant. I don't really care to identify who I am based on what I am. Christina's hair relaxed and returned to its normal state, but Christina's smile only widened. Oh, I think we're going to get along great, she snickered.
Let's focus real quick, Abraham interjected. Tori, she told you what we needed your help with, right?
Dawnbringers, Jelly nodded. Tories say that you have problems with hunters taking friends.
Yeah, they took Asher and Michelle away, Abraham replied. Look, I know that we haven't known each other long or anything, but if there's anything you can do to help us, we'd really appreciate it.
Oh, don't talk like you're strangers, Alexander offered. You're friends of ours right now.
He's right, Penn agreed. We'll do what we can within reason, of course. As he spoke, from out of the woods walked Tamil, holding Annie's body, both looking mildly sad but lightened up upon noticing the farm group. It's you guys, Annie cried, running up to them. Jelly beamed and hugged Annie in a very slimy and wet hug. The two laughed childishly, and Abraham smiled despite himself. Oh, look, the unfunny mummy, David remarked. Oh, smell, the stinky horse boy, Tamil retorted. Alexander snorted with laughter, and David flushed angrily. Cool it, you two, Christina barked. Abraham, we're willing to help, but we need to know what you need. Now all eyes were on Abraham. Again, he felt the weight of his own decisions weighing on his mind. What was the right call? What should he do? It felt like it was overwhelming for a moment, and he had to step back and lean against the wall. Abraham? David asked surprisingly. Sorry, yeah, just, Look, let's wait until Sarah and Calypso get back, and Tori too. Where is Tori? Dunno, she just flew off, Annie explained. Right, of course she did. That bird brain, Katie hissed. Cut her some slack. She's just ADHD or something, David groaned. Don't tell me what to do. Chill out. You chill out. Enough, Christina barked. David, your bottom half is a horse, not an ass. Stop acting like one. And you, Katie Wright, relax. Let's all just relax a second. Katie rolled her eyes and turned away. Abraham couldn't help but thinking things were already going completely wrong. Alexander stepped in. Well, I say we get our bearings. David, take Penn and start looking around the woods and street and areas to see how secure we are. Jelly, stick with Tamil and Annie. And I want you to behave. Yes, sir, Jelly nodded, running over and hugging Tamil's arm, causing the blind mummy to blush. And Christina and I will head inside, because I need to hit the little boy's room. The farm group hurried off to do their jobs. David carried Penn on his head as they began walking, taking note of the area. Tamil and Annie led Jelly to the woods to their secret hiding place where they would likely play for the rest of the day, leaving Katie, Christina, Alexander, and Abraham alone together. So what happened? Christina asked. You acted like your whole world crashed around you. Lay off, Em, Katie snapped. Stop, Katie, it's okay, because she's right, too. I froze up a bit. Why? Alexander asked. I'm nervous. I have to make sure that everyone's taken care of, and now I'm making a new alliance. I thought I was doing the right thing at first, but it's been so long, and I felt like we haven't made any progress towards getting Michelle and Asher back, and I don't even know where to start. Leadership isn't about progress, Christina answered. It's about making the decisions that are necessary to keep yourself and your followers in the best possible situation. Well, then I'm doubly screwed because our best situation is having Michelle and Asher back, and I have no idea how to do that, Abraham argued. To this, Christina had no answer. She crossed her arms and bit her lip, looking worried. Let's not get caught up on the details, Alexander said. You're too busy worrying about the horizon. You ain't looking at the trees in your paths. We don't have time for your weird country isms, Christina argued. It ain't no ism, it's a proverb. You gotta deal with the immediate problem before you go worrying about the eventual ones. The immediate problem being you need to rally your club again, and you ain't got y'all working like a unit again yet, right? A unit? Look, you're sending everyone out on different jobs to keep them busy, but you should start by figuring out what it is you want to do first. So what is it? What do you want? He told you already, Katie snapped. We want our friends back. Then discuss that with your club. Have you even actually discussed plans, ideas, directions? Have you talked to your club, or have you just sent them off to do tasks? I haven't really talked to them, no. Well, then that's our first priority, he said. Once everyone comes back, then we can talk about our plan of attack. But first, the first thing you got to do, Abraham, if you want to be a proper leader, you got to get the club together. You got to talk to them about what you're thinking. If all you do is send them off to do tasks, you're just wasting their time and yours. It's time you got down to brass tacks and actually did something. And that is chapter 48. Go ahead and take that down. Let me pull up the thing here. There we go. All right, now we're moving on to Reanimated, Chapter 5. Give me just a second to get something to drink. All right, we're good. All Let's do this thing. Reanimated Chapter 5. Written October 28th, 2013. Getting out of the hospital proved quite easy. There were only 1 or 2 zombies between them and the way out, mostly because any others were probably busy upstairs with the doctor. It was best not to think about that too much. Gabriel was in the lead with Max right behind him. They stayed silent most of the way, occasionally telling the other to hurry. When they made it to the exit, Gabriel pushed open the doors and entered into the sun-baked street, which was littered with abandoned cars and the occasional dead body.
What's our next move, Gabriel?
Max asked. I beg your pardon, Gabriel responded, turning back to her. Max indicated her backpack.
Well, we're getting to this military, right? How are we going to get it? How are we going to get it to them?
Max asked. Gabriel shrugged and sat on the hood of a busted car. Well, I don't know, he said. He answered honestly. Max just stared at him blankly for a minute. Look, my only goal is to get out of the city. Cures, moms, and military stuff ain't at the top of my priorities right now. Max groaned and glared angrily at him.
Dr. Edwards gave his life for us to get out of the building.
Actually, he was going to die regardless, Gabriel said. When you're bitten, you're marked for death.
Why are you so cold-hearted?
Max spat at him.
Don't you care at all about the survivors or about the city?
Gabriel winced and looked away. Well, I came for you, didn't I? Max paused and breathed out, putting the backpack in her lap.
Okay. I'm sorry, Max muttered. And I do appreciate you saving me. I really do. And I also appreciate what you did for Dr. Edwards, whether you meant it or not. But we have a job to do. You know, people are counting on us to save them. We need to get this vaccine to the right people, and I need to find my mom. We need to stick together if we're going to survive this. Please. I promise that I'll find some way to repay you for this later, but right now we need to work together.
Gabriel smiled and shook his head. No, I don't need payment, he said. What I need is a promise.
A promise? Max asked.
I want you to promise me that when we get out of here and you find your mom, deliver this cure and the city's all saved and all that, promise me that you'll remember who I am, Gabriel asked.
Why would I forget about you, silly? Max asked.
Gabriel shrugged. I don't know. Everyone so far has. My dad, my mom, this city. Everyone just sort of forgets that I exist and puts me aside, Gabriel muttered. Max just stared for a long moment and nodded.
I'll remember you,
Max promised. Gabriel smiled. Well, here's hoping.
So what do we do first?
Gabriel stood up and looked around him. There are 10 emergency exits all around the city. 2 of them have been locked off because the areas close to them are overrun and not safe, so only 8 are left, Gabriel explained.
Well, which ones are they?
No idea, but I know that the one closest to us is locked off, Gabriel answered. Max groaned and rubbed her head in frustration.
Okay, so what do we do? Wander around until we find one?
Well, even if we find one, we don't know when it'll open again, Gabriel argued. What we need is to find a public radio that is still working and listen to see when and where the next exit will open.
Okay, that shouldn't be too hard, Max said with a grin.
You think so? Gabriel asked. We don't know the radio station the broadcast is going over. Even if we get our hands on a radio, we'll have to figure out what station to listen for, and we'll have to make sure we get to the location of that gate when it opens and before it closes again. Gabriel sat down and crossed his arms deep in thought. Max then snapped her finger happily, letting out a loud laugh.
I know what we can do. My old school.
What?
My old school has 3 different radios, and one of them should work, Max explained gladly. It's only a few miles away, and I still remember how to get there.
Gabriel frowned and thought it over a moment. It's a good idea, but there's a slight problem, he said.
What's that?
Max asked. If the school was overrun, then we'll be walking right into a school full of zombies.
Not that different from a typical school day, then, Max joked.
However, Gabriel snickered, if the school was well protected, it'd be an ideal place for survivors to hold up. It's well equipped with food, medical supplies, and shelter.
Then that's good. They can help us.
Will they? Gabriel asked. In my experience, when pushed to their extremes, sometimes we get to see the worst in humanity.
And sometimes we see the best, Max defended. We don't have any other options here. Let's just check it out at the very least.
Gabriel opened his mouth as if to argue, but closed it again. All right. Lead the way, then. Max and Gabriel walked for several hours along the streets, careful to keep their eyes out for any zombies. As they walked, Max stopped at a small restaurant and turned to Gabriel. She had a nervous look in her eye.
When we turn this corner, the school will be about a mile away up a slight hill. What if we don't find what we're looking for?
It's kind of late for that, Gabriel answered. We're here. Let's check it out. As he walked around the corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. Oh, hell. Max turned to see as well. Moving up and down the street and the hillside were mobs of moaning, lumbering flesh bags. Some were on the ground chewing on bodies, and others were gathering around these hordes. Some of the zombies looked to be normal men and women, while others were clearly children from the school. Max shut her eyes and looked away.
How? How did it get that bad? She gasped. We barely ran into any trouble on the way over.
It means that the food supply here is still plentiful. There are live humans here, and the hordes have gathered to try and get them.
Max suddenly turned to Gabriel, eyes wide with excitement.
You mean other survivors? They must be in the school like you said.
If we're going to get in there, we need to find a way to thin out those zombies. We'll never make it through the horde that size.
Max's smile faded. She began to realize their ugly situation. Gabriel groaned and began to scratch his head, wondering what options he had at his disposal.
All right, I've got a plan, but it could get ugly, Gabriel whispered. One of us will draw the zombies' attention and lead them away from the parking lot. The other one will make their way to the school and get inside.
Max's face went pale.
What? That's suicide!
You got a better plan? Gabriel snapped.
Max went silent and Gabriel continued. Look, I'll draw their attention. I'm faster than you, and I know how to run away pretty well. You go to the school and try to get inside. With any luck, there'll be a door or window that wasn't barred shut.
Well, if there's a ladder to the roof that I can use,
Max noted, recalling an emergency fire exit ladder.
And you?
Max demanded. I'll try to lose the horde somewhere and make my way back to the school, Gabriel whispered.
What if you don't make it back?
I'd rather not think about that.
Just answer the damn question. I don't want to go through this alone.
Gabriel gave her a sympathetic look.
Okay, I will make it back. Just don't look back and run as fast as you can to the school.
Max sighed and gave a soft whimper.
All right. I'm ready,
Max whispered. Gabriel nodded and drew his sword. Good luck. He then ran out of the corner, cleaving a zombie's head clean off its shoulders. Hey! He roared. Anyone hungry? Come and get me! As if on instinct, the zombies all turned to glare at Gabriel. Gabriel didn't move a muscle as thousands of bloodshot, pale eyes turned on him. You sons of bitches up for some fast food? Come on, you rotten flesh bags, you want a bite of this? Whether the zombies understood his taunts and insults was irrelevant. He'd gotten their attention, and now they were moving to him. Some, who looked very rotten and bloody, moved slowly, limping and lurching along. Others, who looked freshly dead, moved a little faster, actually able to lift their legs somewhat. Max noted that the longer the corpse had been dead, the slower it moved. Gabriel was beginning to back away, moving to the back alleys. He shot a glance at Max, warning her as if telling her not to run yet, not until he'd gotten them off the streets.
Please run. Gabriel, you have to run,
Max whispered. Gabriel watched the horde get closer. One got close to him as he slashed it across the face with his sword. The beast fell, but the rest kept coming, forcing him to start running away. As he ran, the horde picked up speed as well. They weren't as fast as he was, but there was still a wave of moaning and snarling monstrosities after him. Now he was running down the alley. The horde was hot on his trail, lumbering and moaning the whole way. The street was clear.
Thank you,
she whispered. Max dashed from her hiding place and tore across the street. Her pistol was out and she was sprinting as hard as she could to the school. She could still hear the horde moving away, chasing Gabriel into the alleys. She tried not to look back or think about if Gabriel got cornered. She kept her eyes on the school. Then she jumped to the side. Though the horde was gone, a few stragglers remained, and they had caught sight of her. A few of the moaning monsters were lumbering to her. Max let out a scream and jumped past them, firing behind her at the zombies. One took a bullet in the side of the head and collapsed, but the other shot missed, and the monsters were still coming. Damn it! Max hissed. The school was right in front of her. She pushed harder and ran faster, working her way to the front door. The few remaining zombies were falling behind, but they weren't stopping. Max ran to the front double doors and smashed her shoulder against them. They didn't budge. Open up! She screamed. If there's anyone in there, please! No one answered. The zombies had made it up the hill and were now starting to move across the field. I am begging you, open the door, she answered. Damn it! Max roared. She stepped away from the doors and ran along the brick wall, looking for a window or an opening. Nothing showed itself. There was no way inside. The roof it is! Max dashed along the wall, seeing the zombies beginning to close in. They were only seconds away. She dashed to the other side of the wall and saw a large red ladder leading up to the roof. She made a mad sprint. She screamed and stumbled and looked to see a zombie had grabbed her ankle. She'd closed the distance and were trying to slow her down. Let go of me! She turned and fired a shot into the zombie's forehead, causing her to collapse to the ground with a groan. Max stood up trembling and leaping at the ladder, grabbing it and quickly climbing up. As she climbed up, she looked down at the small crowd of at least 8 or 9 zombies who were all standing beneath the ladder, reaching up at her and moaning angrily. They were unable to climb and they couldn't reach her. Their food had escaped. Max sat on the floor breathing heavily as tears ran down her cheeks. That escape had been way too close, and she'd almost died. She'd almost been caught by the horde. She sat curled up on the cold roof, hugging her knees as she looked out over the towering buildings and the networks of streets.
Every now and then she'd see a small mob of zombies moving and lumbering along the streets, looking small like ants, oblivious to the terror in her heart. She sat there for 30 minutes, when suddenly a thought jumped in her mind, a request she recalled not long ago. Promise me that you'll remember who I am. I don't know, everyone just sort of forgets about me and puts me to the side. Gabriel, Max whispered, I know you're all right. I just know it. But slowly the realization began to sink in. The paranoia began to fill her mind. What if he wasn't all right? What if he'd been caught? I will make it back. I won't forget you, Gabriel, Max sobbed into the setting sun. I promise, I know that you'll come back. Please come back. I can't do this alone. I will make it back. These words echoed in Max's ears as she sobbed softly, praying desperately for her friend to come back. All right, and that was chapter 5. And now we move on to chapter 6. All right. The sun was setting, and there was no sign of Gabriel. Max began to lose hope, but she refused to budge from the roof. The sound of the moaning and groaning below were growing fainter. They were beginning to disperse and hunt for different, more easily captured prey. Suddenly, the sound of movement behind her caught her attention. Max went around, gun ready, but hands shaking. She looked to see a door to the roof slowly opening. A figure stuck his body out of the doorway and turned to look at her.
Who the hell are you and what are you doing here? He ordered.
Max nearly burst into tears at the sound of another voice. Oh, thank God, she cried. I was so scared I was all alone here.
You were the one who got rid of that mob, didn't you? The man asked.
Max shook her head, remembering Gabriel, and how he'd led the mob away. No, that was a friend of mine.
Where are they?
I don't know, Max answered. The figure groaned and then motioned to her.
Get inside, then.
Max jumped to her feet and ran to the door. The man was more visible now. He was wearing a janitor's uniform, and he was Hispanic in ethnicity. He had dirty black hair, and there were blood blotches on certain spots of his uniform, which Max stared at.
Don't worry about that. I'm not bitten. Well, not yet, anyway.
Max nodded and followed him down the ladder and into the school. Is there anyone else here? Max asked.
A few, the man said. My name is Fernando. I was a janitor here before the outbreak.
I'm Max.
Well, Max, considering that this is a school, I'm sure this is no surprise to you, but welcome to hell.
Max giggled despite herself and followed Fernando through the dark hallways. She started to put away her pistol, but Fernando stopped her.
No. Keep it out.
Why?
There are still a few demons walking the halls, and others that we've locked in the classrooms. I don't want to round a corner and get a nasty surprise, he said.
As they walked, Max looked and noticed the front doors, which were all barred shut and barricaded. Why didn't you let me in? Max asked.
Sorry, but to let you through would mean we had to rip down the barricade, and we couldn't risk it. But don't complain, you managed to get in, didn't you? Fernando argued. Yeah, one of us, Max noted, but he promised me he'd come back. Kid, Fernando said darkly, do us a favor and don't hope. We've all given up hope a long time ago, and you can't really take anymore.
Max fell silent and gazed at the dark and hurt look on Fernando's face. It was clear he'd lost someone as well, and he'd given up on hope, given up on himself.
The sun's gone down, and power's out all around the district. If you had a friend out there and you got separated, then he's dead.
No, Max snapped. Not Gabriel. He'll survive and he'll be here. I know it. Max tried to look hopeful, but she too was starting to question her own resolve. Could Gabriel make it to the school, or was he already gone?
Whatever you say, kid, Fernando said.
They turned a corner and walked down a large hall to the main lobby. Where are we going?
The cafeteria, Fernando said. That's where everyone else is held up.
Max then remembered what she was here for, and the vial in her backpack. The vaccine. No, take me to the front office, Max demanded.
Fernando stopped and stared at her.
What? Does the front office have a working radio? Max asked.
Fernando suddenly nodded and sighed. I get it. You want to listen and see when and where the emergency exit will happen? You want to get out of the city? Fernando asked.
Exactly. So do you have one? Max asked.
Fernando groaned and rubbed his head. Well, we do. However, it's not that simple. Come on and I'll explain when we get to the cafeteria.
Max had little choice but to follow Fernando through the several halls until they finally came to the large double doors in the dining room. Tables were all over the room, and 3 were shoved up against the outside doors, keeping anything outside from getting in. Sitting in the middle of the room was a small group of people. There was a small family of a father, mother, and her 2 children. There was a young man with several tattoos and a buzzed head. He had a mean look in his eyes. There were also a group of teachers and 1 or 2 students sitting and talking. When they saw Max enter, they all just gave silent hellos, and Max returned them. "So why can't I use the radio?" Max asked. Fernando sat down and grabbed a box from on top of a table. He reached in and pulled out a bag of chips and tossed them to Max. Max caught them and suddenly realized how hungry she was feeling. She'd eaten nothing all day. She opened the bag and began to shovel down the chips inside.
"So listen," Fernando said. "Escape is impossible."
Max shot him a surprised look. "What do you mean?"
He means we've already listened and He means we've already listened to that damn radio," the tattooed man growled. "We've listened since yesterday evening, waiting for some damn announcement saying that we could get out and that we might make it to an exit. Do you know what happened when we got the news one opening up 5 miles away?"
Max shook her head. The entire room went quiet.
"Let's just say there were more of us here earlier," he snarled. "We tried to run and make a run for it," Fernando explained. "But we ran straight into a giant mob you encountered earlier. We lost about 15 people to the mob, and then 9 others got bitten before we were able to barricade the doors. We had to put them down," Fernando explained.
"And after that, we shut off the radio. We're not going back out there," one of the teachers followed up. "We're safe in here. We have food, shelter, and medical supplies. We can last for a few weeks." The entire room nodded in agreement. "But you don't get it," Max cried, tossing the bag of chips to the ground. "I have to get to a 2-way radio. I have to contact the outside." The other survivors shot her hostile looks.
"And why's that?" the father said, still holding his wife and child.
Max reached into her bag and pulled out the vial. "Because I have the vaccine."
The entire room gasped and they looked at the vial of liquid. "What?" Fernando demanded. "How did you get that? Is it really a vaccine?"
"Does it matter?" the mother shouted. "If that's really a vaccine, then we might be able to live through this." Max quickly started to stash the vial away. "I have to keep it safe and get it outside of the military forces. They can replicate it and use it to save the city. They can save all of us."
"Just like that radio broadcast did," the tattooed man said again. "Tom, stop," Fernando ordered.
Tom was about to open his mouth, but then fell silent again, knowing that he was overstepping his bounds.
"Max," Fernando whispered, "I don't know how you got that vaccine, and I don't care. But if that thing really is a vaccine, then you need to let us use it to protect us."
Max shook her head. "No, it's only enough for 1 person. I need all of it so it can be replicated. I can't let anyone have it. I'm sorry." The room buzzed with surprise and disappointment. Fernando's face fell and he sighed.
"All right. That does make things complicated." "No, it doesn't," Tom shouted again. "Let one of us have it." "Enough, Tom," Fernando roared. "This is not up for debate. I'm not going to die here."
Tom made a lunge for the pack, but Fernando and the father both rushed forward and held him back.
"Stop it!" they snapped. Tom fought for a moment, but eventually he calmed down and bit his lip. Sorry, he growled. I guess I lost it there. I'm cool, he admitted.
Fernando shot him a look and then looked back at Max.
"Max, the last thing we can do right now is rely on false hope. So don't think that just walking in preaching about a possible salvation will change our minds," Fernando explained. "But with that said, we can't overlook this chance either. I'll go with you to the radio and try to patch you through." He then stood up and looked around. "Everyone else, wait here. We'll be right back."
Max silently thanked Fernando and followed him to the door. He opened it and quickly rushed out into the hallway. "What was it with Tom back there?" Max asked.
"Don't take it too personally. When we tried to escape the first time, Tom's cousin was one of the ones who got bitten. We had to put him down in front of Tom, and he didn't take it well," Fernando explained. Max grimaced a little, feeling a great amount of pity for Tom. "But I'd keep my eye on him. He'll probably try to steal the vaccine from you again if he gets the chance."
"Right. I'll be careful," Max agreed. Fernando walked Max to a big door and looked inside.
"Coast looks clear, but keep that gun out. Radio's inside,"
Fernando explained. Max nodded and waited. Fernando pushed open the door and Max stepped in, pointing her gun in every direction, hoping not to see any monster suddenly jump out. Fernando walked around her and then pulled out a large black radio box. He fiddled with the wires a moment.
"Give me just a second. Watch my back for me."
Max looked around but didn't see any obvious threats. "What did you do with the ones who were bitten?" Max asked.
"Do you really want to know what we did?" Fernando asked.
"No," Max admitted. Fernando continued his work, ignoring the question. Max kept her eyes open, and once she saw a figure lumber slowly outside the office past the window, but it didn't notice them, so Max let it go.
"All right. It's on. Now we just have to get the frequency right."
Fernando began fiddling with the radio.
"This should only take a moment."
Max heard static at first, waiting, listening. Finally, an odd and electronic voice could be heard coming from the radio speaker. Let's have aware that this is the emergency broadcast system. The following are the times at which emergency exits will be accessible. Listen for ones closest to you. After that, the radio began releasing names and times that an emergency exit would be open. This is it, Fernando announced. If there's still a radio station working, then they'll have someone there who might be able to answer us. He quickly grabbed the radio receiver and flipped it on. Come in. Is there anybody listening to this? There was no answer. I say again, can anyone hear this? Still no answer. This is Fernando Versa calling from Williamson Elementary School. A young girl came into the school claiming she has a vaccine to the infection. I repeat, she has a vaccine. There was still nothing but silence. Fernando, I don't think they hear us. Fernando growled, damn it. We'll just have to... Come in, Mr. Versa. Fernando Versa, are you still with me? Max nearly squealed with excitement at the sound of the voice. Fernando grabbed the receiver and spoke again. I'm here. It's damn good to hear your voice right now, he said. Fernando Versa, my name is Lieutenant Joseph Gresset, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you folks out. I really like that, sir, Fernando said. Now say again, Mr. Versa, did you say there was someone there who had a vaccine to this infection? Yes, she's right here with me. I need to speak with her, if you please. Fernando turned and handed the receiver to Max. Hello? Young lady, I need you to be 100% honest with me, the lieutenant said firmly. Do you really have a vaccine to the zombie infection? And if so, where did you obtain it? I do, Max said. I got it from a very good friend of mine at the hospital my mom works at, from Dr. Edwards. There was a pause over the radio. You believe me, right? I do, young lady. I've just gotten confirmation that Dr. George Edward was in the process of developing a vaccine. He gave this to you, I suppose? Where is the doctor now? He's dead. He gave it to me before he died, Max answered. Damn. All right, listen carefully. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do. I'm listening. I want you to keep that vaccine locked up tight and close to your person. You are not to hand it over to anyone else. Are we clear? Yes, Max answered. I'm going to give your report to my superiors and inform them of the situation. We shall contact you again as soon as we have a plan of action for you to take. Keep this radio on you at all times and on this frequency so that we can reach you. Do you understand? Max nodded and looked at Fernando, who gave her a smile and nodded back at her, saying that he understood. Yeah, I understand. When will we hear from you? I'm not sure yet, but expect a response within 12 hours. 12 hours? But that's so long. I'm afraid that's the best I can do for now, dear. I promise that we will contact you soon. All right, fine, Max said. Before she could say anything else, Fernando took the receiver from Max and began to speak fast. Sir, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I need you to know that we have several survivors here who are getting anxious and a little unstable. I need instruction, help, anything you can offer. I'm afraid there's not much we can do, sir. My advice to you is to do your best to ration your supplies and keep your group safe and calm. Inform them that we will be doing all we can for them and coming in for them soon. With all due respect, that's not going to be enough, sir. I need something, sir, Fernando barked. This is off the record, the lieutenant said quietly, as if trying to keep others from hearing him. I want you to set a signal on the roof of your location and have someone on the roof at all times. Within a few days, we'll be sending in reconnaissance aircraft over the city to search for the larger areas of infection. If they pick up your signal, then we'll know to move to your location first. That is the best I can do, Fernando sighed. Okay, I'll do it. But couldn't you send in air support or something? Not a good idea. Chopper noise will attract the undead to your location. You may be overrun before we can even pick you up. Shit. Fine. I'll be in touch. Do not lose that vaccine. Over and out. With that, the voice disappeared and the radio went back to broadcasting the electronic voice, giving emergency exit locations. Fernando and Max both stared at each other and stood in silence. It looks like you may be getting us out of here after all, Fernando said with a smirk. I guess that's what you get for holding out a little hope. Yeah, Max said. Then her thoughts turned to Gabriel and she frowned. I just hope that Gabriel's okay. Hope's gotten you this far, Max, Fernando said. If it got you here, maybe it'll get your friend here too. And that was chapter 6. All right, well, I think that's it for the night. We've read all the stories I got. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. It was a little bit weird with the stream starting off. I don't know why it gave us so many problems and then canceled itself. I did try to fix it, but it did not go the way I thought.
Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. It was fun. But I don't know if we'll be able to do it this next coming Monday. It'll depend on how much time I get to work on stuff. Probably expect us to have to skip next week and go into the following Monday. We'll see. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I did have a good time. And as always, guys, I will see you in my next video. Take care.